Hey, it's really with Tom and Dave again.
You startled me.
Sorry, which part? When I did the clap for editing, or when I was
Screamed
overly
"Hey" at me.
enthusiastic? I did. I
Yeah,
was a little more high energy than I normally am.
it was
You
exciting.
know, yeah,
It was exciting to see this
because
this high energy part of you.
I know because I'm famous for my low key delivery. Well,
Hmm.
famous. I say famous because I wish that were true. But I'm known. How about that? I'm known.
I think reasonably famous is a
Yeah.
totally fair
All right, I'll go with that. I'll go with
attribution.
reasonable or
If
relatively.
relatively, absolutely.
Yeah,
No, I've seen it. I've been on the streets when you've been chased down,
that's
so
true.
that qualifies. Nobody does that to
Mm.
me.
Yeah, well, not as a fan,
No,
not as a
just I mean, yeah,
yeah,
police,
just
various,
yeah, or people that hate the Phillies since you wear that jersey
New York.
constantly.
Oh yeah, eat it,
Yeah,
New York, eat it,
who are they
National League
playing
division.
now?
What?
Who's what's where are they at in the standings in
We're
the
doing
baseballs?
pretty good. I mean, we may be close to the lead. I mean, I think we're 20-17. We're better than that. We're like 24-17. We got the Blue Jays. We're on a 6 or 7 game winning streak right now.
Ah, are the Blue Jays doing all right? Because
They
I'm
were
from there,
they were okay.
Yeah,
They're doing okay, but we've just slobber knocked them yesterday.
yeah.
Bryce had a grand slam. So yeah, I'm turning the page. I'm turning the
All
page
right.
from
Bryce
basketball.
Bryce Zabel
Bryce Zabel? What?
from you, yeah, from the
No,
from
not
the
UAP
UFO
people.
shows,
Yeah,
UFO
no.
talk shows.
Bryce Harper. We pay him a lot of
Oh,
money in
okay.
Philadelphia to hit home
All right.
runs.
All right.
But yes, I'm representing, so I'm gonna wear this jersey for the summer for every
Yeah. Well,
podcast.
yeah. I've had to retire my Maple Leafs jersey
I'm sorry about
for the
that.
season.
I'm
Yeah, it's
sorry
very
about that.
heartbreaking.
They exited the first round. You
Yeah,
have
I'm still
informed
I'm
me.
still wearing blue and white as a residual, I guess. But
Yeah. No, it's good. It
but
looks
now yeah,
summery.
I'm gearing up for trying to cheer for the New York Rangers.
Okay.
That's my
Really? Do you
plan
have to do
now.
that?
Well, I live here, so
I know. Just New York.
mm,
I'm mad at New York. The
yeah,
Knicks beat the Sixers in the playoffs. I'm
yeah,
pissed. I'm
yeah.
pissed at New York. And if you're
Yeah.
listening from New York,
And where
I'm not going to say anything because
and
we
make it
love our
relate.
listeners
New
in New
York,
York.
where John Lennon saw a UFO in the 1970s.
Did John Lennon see a UFO in New
Yes,
York?
there's videos of him talking about it. When he was with
Fabulous.
living with May Pang. She talked about it in her documentary about living with John. Um, and they had an apartment overlooking overlooking the East River, and they saw a huge UFO while they were standing naked on their rooftop,
Gee whiz. Was that
which
before he
they
was in the
do.
Dakota, which I think is over?
No, this is down. This is when he and Yoko had separated.
Ah,
So he was down, I think, down on the east
that is
side.
Lost Weekend, which lasted longer than a weekend.
Yeah, his last year, his Harry Nilsson year, where he was, I guess, married to Harry Nilsson for a while,
You know what?
and
These
into
rock
drugs and
stars.
alcohol. But yeah, but so he, and that's why there's that line in is that nobody told me there'd be days like this. He said there's UFOs over New York, and I can't remember the rest of the lyric.
Well,
And
they'll
he,
have
and
to
he drew
look it up now.
on walls and bridges. He drew a picture of on the cover. He drew a picture of the UFO that he saw.
Well, pivot. You know
Two
who knows a
UFOs,
lot about UFOs and who may know more than both of us, certainly me,
or even John Lennon.
or definitely more than John Lennon, and that would be our fabulous guest today.
Yes.
Matt Ford is an Emmy-winning political consultant, media personality, and producer based in Los Angeles. As a producer, Matt has led numerous successful projects, notably creating over 100 political ads for social media platforms. These ads, with a staggering 15 million unique views, demonstrate his skill in creating captivating and engaging content. His production prowess is further showcased in The Good Trouble Show, where he hosts thought-provoking discussions with influential figures such as Senator Crissy and other prominent political figures. In addition to his media accomplishments, Matt has established himself as a trusted political consultant specializing in the complex topic of unidentified anomalous phenomenon, UAP. He has provided valuable counsel on UAP-related matters to members of Congress and congressional committees, and has worked closely with UAP whistleblowers. Matt's unique perspective and deep understanding of the subject have made him a go-to expert in navigating the intricacies of UAP in the political arena. His insightful op-eds on UAP and United States nuclear policy have been featured in publications like the Daily Mail, The Debrief, and Crooks and Liars, further establishing him as a trusted voice in the field. He is certainly a trusted voice. He's a good friend of this podcast. We were thrilled to be on his excellent podcast. And now we get to have him on ours.
Yes. And he's also runs the Ford Modeling Agency, I believe.
Yeah, which we never knew.
Which is why he's always has two hot ladies on his arm wherever he goes.
Matt, where are you?
I'm here.
Matt.
There he is.
So, yeah, the line is, are UFOs over New York? And I ain't too surprised.
That's it.
Oh, see?
Right.
The thing, I had no idea that he was naked on top of his apartment his apartment building when he saw all of that.
That's the story. May Pang told this story that they were, because they're a bunch of filthy hippies, so they wander around naked all the time, and
He's always naked. He was naked on magazine covers all the time.
So
naked in the videos.
So they were.
I'm sure the aliens were like, John Lennon's naked on that balcony. Like, go in.
Yeah,
check it out.
So he was naked, and he saw this UFO. Just again, apparently, it was like really only like a couple hundred meters away from his penthouse apartment. And he's standing out on the rooftop and calls May Pang out, and she's also naked. So the two of them are standing out there naked, watching this UFO sort of just hovering a couple hundred meters away.
Well, that actually makes sense now, because the first time that I had a UFO show up above my house in LA, I was naked in my hot tub.
Yes.
And I had no idea why it showed up. So maybe it's a nudity thing. I have no idea.
That's funny. When Jeremy Corbell and I saw our UFO,
oh, here we go.
We were both fully dressed.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure we heard a voice saying thank you.
Yeah, I thought there was another chapter to this story I hadn't heard yet, which would be fascinating. But
I wondered why I didn't hang around so long.
Outside. Yeah, I'm gonna go outside naked tonight and just see what you see. See what sees you. To the. Or I'll just wear my Phillies jersey, but I'll be bottomless. How about that?
Well, you have a nice hot tub. You can go out there naked.
Sometimes I do.
Do the Matt Ford beckoning.
You have no idea what might show up above your house.
The beckoning.
Yes.
That'll
Matt
be
Ford
our
sitting in
movie.
in his hot tub, like an anglerfish.
That's right. And just make sure you put the lights on the hot tub so it's kind of like cycling colors. I think that tends to attract them as well.
Yeah.
This is an unexpected place to start, but no subject is off limits today.
No.
That's right.
We got Matt naked in the hot tub right off the bat, so we don't know where this is going, but it's going to be interesting.
Well, guys, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being everyone. On.
Yeah,
we were talking earlier that you were cited in a Merrick von Rennenkamp article.
Ah, yes.
That because we were talking before we started today about the Eglin Air Force Base UFO sighting that was, I guess, first brought up publicly by Matt Gaetz in the congressional hearings back last summer, and was and of course then there was the talk when they went down to talk to the pilot and they were refused access to the pilot, and then they got access to the pilot. And then, then finally, Arrow put out their explanation of the event, and because of your expertise in the entertainment industry, you were cited when Arrow claimed that what the pilot saw was, in fact, I guess what he saw was with three untethered lighting balloons from film and television.
Yeah, it's the first time I heard this, Kirkpatrick I think he had kind of floated out a trial balloon, no pun intended, about 3 or 4 months prior to it. Actually, I think it might have been around like November or December. And is this like a G-rated podcast? Can I say the BS?
You can say anything you wish.
Okay,
you can say every fucking word you want, man.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, I immediately knew that it was bullshit. And this is coming from who I think is the king of bullshit, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, and their BS factory known as Arrow. But it immediately just smacked of just being something that they were completely reaching for. So as as you mentioned, so in my real job, I work as a lighting designer in the television world. I've
Yes.
done that for a number of decades.
Poetically, your day job is literally to shed light on things.
It is. It truly is.
That works.
Yeah.
And I have shed light on things using these balloons. So one of the first things that Kirkpatrick floated before this came out officially in the report was, of course, that it was a lighting balloon that got away. Now, of course, these lighting balloons, they come in different shapes. Some are actually kind of oblong. They do look like what could be mistaken as a Tic Tac, or the one he was showing was kind of oval with a black top to it. But what he is failing to mention is that these things, they just do not get away. Number one, you can't buy them. These are rental only items, and you rent them. There are two companies here in the United States. I've used a company called Airstar. They're in Florida, which is apparently where Sean rented this thing from for his little lab in his garage. But you rent these things, and somebody shows up. A technician shows up with this balloon. You tell them where you want it. The technician figures out how he's going to tether it, fills it up with helium with the help of some stagehands. They float the thing up. It's got a electrical cable that comes down to power the very bright light source, and the thing just doesn't get away. And I actually called up Airstar and said, "Hey, have you guys ever lost a balloon?" And the guy laughed, and he's like, "No, we've never lost one. The closest we've come to that happening was one did pull away from the tethers, but the technician and the stagehands were able to pull it down and put it back into place." So number one, this balloon is a rental item only. It comes with a technician that stays with this thing. Number two, you have to have a big electrical connection, electrical cord going to this thing. This isn't just like plugging in like a Home Depot extension cord. It's a heavy cable. And then thirdly, if this thing were to get loose, the highest it can float up under any sort of atmospheric condition is around 5,000 feet above the ground. It doesn't matter barometric pressure or wind or anything like that. So this whole notion that this thing could be a film balloon, or we call them HMI balloons, or a couple of other things, is just absolutely ludicrous. But much of what was in the Aero report before in what March 10, 2024 was pretty ludicrous as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Sean Kirkpatrick, go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just going to say, but if by some fluke, say 3 of these things got loose from either one production or maybe 3 separate productions, would they form a flock?
No.
Would they fly in formation?
No, they definitely would not. And I have no idea.
They don't seek each other out.
They don't seek each other out. There are no magnets inside that hold them together and make a giant chain of film balloons. The thing to keep in mind too, the Eglin Air Force pilot, I think was Air Force, but he reported these things at between, I think it was 13 and 15,000 feet, well above anything like any kind
of
balloon.
That's above 5,000 feet.
Right? Yeah, that's about 5,000 feet. So, but I can't imagine. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, weather balloon, that's out of my wheelhouse completely. But it definitely, there is no way in hell this thing was a Hollywood balloon. And as a matter of fact, once this report came out, I actually gave Airstar a call and said, "Hey, do you know this is what the Pentagon is saying, that this could be one of your balloons that got loose?" And the guy just laughed, and he's like, "There's no way." And this, I can't say who it was, but this was a person pretty high up in this company. So I think that this is yet just another example of the Pentagon, Aero's Pentagon, trying to just kind of, in a way, make stuff up. It's like, ooh, shiny, go look at the shiny balloon over here, as opposed to what I think was probably going on.
For our viewers who, and maybe for me too, what was the initial report? Like, how did the initial report come out, and what did the pilot report seeing exactly? that then got mangled by Kirkpatrick?
I don't remember all the details of it, but essentially it was like it looked like kind of a half crescent or oval with a black top on it, but apparently it had sort of red markings on the side, which that is not typical. But apparently this pilot. I think he saw it was a fleet of two or three of them on radar, but only one of them he was able to visually see, and that was the one that I guess he took that kind of crappy buzzy or fuzzy cell phone photo of. But from what I understand from Matt Gates, who spoke about this recently, is there are other photos that he saw that were not part of this Arrow report. That how I took it from him was that it did not look like anything from here, let alone a Airstar film balloon.
Mm-hmm. But Arrow probably, they got a lot of stuff to do. They probably didn't have time to look at the other photos.
Who knows what they're looking at in there? And the thing is, you don't know as well, like when this report was generated. Was it generated under Kirkpatrick's term? I'm quite certain that the historical report that came out on March 10th that was made under his leadership. But as far as when the second one regarding the balloon, when that came out, that. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's under Phillips, if Phillips wrote it or his people did or whatnot. But the historical report was just a literal wheelbarrow of just crap that you just kind of, at least I question their sort of, we'll just say, an investigative prowess when looking at these things. And even like, I've had people on, actually, you had a gentleman on recently from the nuclear world, Mario Woods, who testified to Arrow. Now, Mario didn't say the same sort of thing, but I can tell you the other nuclear people that testified to Arrow that were former nuclear launch control officers, they literally had very little good to say as far as the kinds of questions Arrow was asking and what appeared to be their sort of investigative process, at least when interviewing these people. So between a Hollywood lighting balloon and kind of some of the other stuff in the historical report from Arrow, I'm just not terribly confident that they kind of know what they're doing.
No.
And now Kirkpatrick's involved in this kind of bizarre sort of reputation refurbishment / bring down everybody else that he can in the process tour, sort of a press tour. Like he keeps popping up on various kind of interviews and podcasts, and I mean, we sort of try to avoid inside baseball a little bit here, but it's turning into like this is like a Hillary Clinton thing. There's emails, there's the Chris, there's Grush, there's things going on, and so. Right. Just like you are, involved with a lot of these folks and kind of the key players in the UAP game. I mean, I'm thinking it's feeling like Empire Strikes Back right now. Like since Schumer's legislation got sort of scissored up, and it feels like David Grush had probably not had the best time. Since his testimony, which was incredible testimony, but we knew we'd heard there was just a lineup of whistleblowers coming, and now Kirkpatrick's coming out and sort of rah, didn't I knock down all these UAP stories? So I don't know, how would you characterize what's happening right now, and what are we to make of this guy? Like, is this just a personal vendetta he has now against UAP Twitter or X, or is this a willful campaign? I guess how would you characterize what's happening out there and where we stand right now in this saga?
I mean, I think it's kind of like all of the above. I mean, it's so many different things. It's kind of like this whole UFO phenomenon as it is. It's not just like a binary black and white thing. There are many things at play. There are many sort of competing interests, competing power structures. It's the whole thing is it's funny, but when I got into this thing and was really kind of interested in the UAP topic, I thought, oh, this is like a really easy thing. It's this from Planet P or whatever, and I quickly realized it's much more complicated than that. And I don't think that this is really any different. Now, actually, Sean Kirkpatrick just earlier today was on Stephen Greenstreet's New York Post podcast. And I have to say, it looked like Sean Kirkpatrick was in Stephen Greenstreet's basement, like tied up as a hostage. It was a very bizarre interview. He was like, he looked very uncomfortable and was very very short in his answers. It was just bizarre. As far as Kirkpatrick, it's hard to say. When I first heard that he was going to be the guy in Arrow, of course, I started asking around. And I have to say, pretty much anyone that said anything about what he was like to work with prior to his assignment at Arrow, none of it was complimentary. It was, I mean, I kind of won't get into it, but I did not meet one person that had dealt with him that had anything good to say in terms of how he was to work with, personality wise. And as a matter of fact, he was, as I understand it, was forced out of Space Force, and that was kind of his last assignment before he moved on to Arrow. But I think all of us in general were trying to give the guy the benefit of the doubt in the beginning. Like maybe he wants to be like the next J. Allen Hynek and wants to right the wrongs of what has been a series of lies for the past 70 plus years. But in some of his initial appearances, I think there was one with Senator Gillibrand where he talked about like the silver orb, and he made some remarks that made me think, what, he's trying to be careful about what he's saying. He can't piss off his boss, Ronald Moultrie, who was head of Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security at the time, which at that particular point in time, Arrow was under Moultrie's purview. Kirkpatrick answered to him. So I could see him being like kind of careful. But the whole David Grush thing, that literally came out of left field. People were aware of it before. People in the intelligence community and the Pentagon were aware that he was going to come out. He had everything that he spoke about. He had to run through the DOPSR pre-publication review, but I don't think that they quite understood what a big deal his testimony would be and what he said in the debrief. So if, in a way, him coming forward, I think it made Kirkpatrick look like a bumbling fool, that he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know where to look. He didn't have the investigative power that he was claiming that he did. And here comes David Grush, and all of a sudden Kirkpatrick has egg on his face. So if you'll notice, right around when Kirkpatrick starts to go rogue was right around the whole David Grush thing. So he goes, I think it was this LinkedIn post that he did. And it was like Kirkpatrick was completely doing his own thing, which especially like with this topic, I can't imagine somebody like him just sort of going rogue. Well, anyway, so he does this. It wasn't Scientific American, it was before that, but he does this whole bananas LinkedIn post where he's trashing Grush and all of that. Well, Undersecretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks gets really pissed off. And I don't know what the interaction was, but basically Kirkpatrick in July says, F you, I'm out of here at the end of the year. And that was when his whole retirement thing got set up. And it just continued to progress. I think that Kirkpatrick definitely has some kind of personal problem with Grush. We know for a fact that towards the end of Kirkpatrick's tenure, he was the one thing he was not able to do was get Grush to come in and testify to Arrow.
Right.
And it was again making Kirkpatrick look like a fool. So Kirkpatrick talks to a senator, whom I'm not going to mention who this senator was, and Sweet talks this senator into going to Dave and saying, and basically using this senator to try and convince Dave to go in and talk to him. So finally Dave says, okay, I'm going to talk, but they have to provide in writing a written waiver that I'm allowed to talk about non-UAP related special access programs or intelligence controlled access programs. If Sean Kirkpatrick, if you give me that in writing that I'm waived to talk about all those things, I'll come in the door and I'll talk. And Kirkpatrick wouldn't do that. And that's where Kirkpatrick's really good at kind of like talking out of both sides of his mouth. He says one thing, but he's kind of lying about some other stuff. And that is the one thing that he's not being truthful about. Kirkpatrick would not provide from ODNI, the IC, the waivers required for Dave to be able to talk about any non-UAP related programs and have that not constitute what is called an unauthorized disclosure. Now, you may ask, why does Dave want to talk about non-UAP related programs? In order for Dave to have explained in detail to Arrow how the entire architecture of the program works, how it's hidden, how it's spread out in different nodes of government, he would have had to have spoken about special access programs and caps that he would have had to have told Kirkpatrick about or testified under oath to Arrow. Actually, not under oath. They can't even do that. They don't have authority to do that. But yeah, so Dave said, you know what, I'm not going in. And I think that was kind of the ultimate FU to Kirkpatrick. And I think ever since, Kirkpatrick has been on kind of like this media rehabilitation tour. But I would venture to guess that he's not going rogue doing it. Something tells me that Kirkpatrick, the people above him, and people in the Pentagon Public Affairs Office, I suspect they are well aware of what he's doing and giving him the green light. So I know that was a bit of a rant. I don't know if I answered.
I think
it
was a very
really interesting,
informative rant. And
Grush did a good job of exposing kind of what a kind of clown car operation that Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick was running at Arrow. And and I can say too as well that with pretty good confidence that many lawmakers were frustrated with what they were really kind of getting for their money. I mean, you have to think about it. You know, this running this whole Arrow program, and the budget itself is classified. I don't know what it is, but it's certainly quite a bit. So you've got the end of December. He's leaving, and Grush won't go in under advisement from his attorney, and rightfully so. And and the thing you have to think about, you'll hear a lot of people say, you know what, these guys, they should just tell us everything you know. It's like, A, they don't know us anything. But B, the thing to remember is if you have signed a national security non-disclosure agreement and you make what is called an unauthorized disclosure of whatever it is that you signed that NDA for, it is prison time in Leavenworth, it's loss of your pension, it's loss of your security clearance. I think it's like a $10,000 fine. I mean, they do not mess around. And the other thing you have to think about is the whistleblowers such as Lou Elizondo and David Grush. So for instance, David Grush, and I'm sure the same goes for Lou, but Grush understands what are called these. So when you have a special access program, you have something called a security classification guide, and it's a big freaking guide that describes the special access program, what you can say, what you can't say, if you're caught, what lies you can say to cover up the program. I mean, it's a whole thing, and it is very, very definitive on what is the red line that's going to land you in jail. Grush Elizondo, anybody that has signed these NDAs and knows the SCG for that SAP, they know up to what line they can walk it to, and both of these guys do a good job of walking it up to that line. But the intelligence community, in particular the CIA, the Air Force Office of Special Investigation, AFOSI, they are watching these guys like hawks. FBI, they are watching Dave and Lou and anybody else that maybe we're not aware of, that waiting for them to cross that red line, and as soon as they do, boom, that's it. They're in jail.
Yeah, and they're definitely monitoring any podcasts or mainstream media interviews that they do.
Oh, I'm quite certain of it. So yeah, so you get to the end of December. Grush hasn't come in, and he's claimed he's got all of this authority, but he doesn't. And the thing that you have to consider when you look at this whole topic is, this is really the fox guarding the hen house. So, so the report comes out March 10th, and the whole thing is a joke. It's got links to wiki fans. It has links in there that are broken. But when you step back and you look at the fact that Arrow, the Pentagon, is investigating itself, the IC is investigating itself, it's kind of no surprise what happened. You've got a CIA that has a history of lying to Congress and lying to the American public. You've got MK Ultra. You've got the Iraqi invasion. The Iraq invasion with the whole WMD thing, Gulf War syndrome, Havana syndrome. I mean, just today, I had the attorney that was on 60 Minutes talking about Havana syndrome.
I know.
He was on our show last week.
Yeah,
and he was just testifying today. So you literally cannot trust what is coming out of this office, in my opinion. And I'm happy to dig into that with more detail later.
Well, certainly, it's sort of akin to back in the late 60s and early 70s when the mafia was asked to investigate themselves. Which that didn't happen, by the way, people who don't. But when the Valachi papers came out, and when the
yes.
the government didn't say, "Hey, mafia, do an internal examination, could you? Let us know if you're committing any crimes."
Yeah.
No, and you can also have good, you can have good people, and you have, Congress giving the money towards setting up Arrow. They want to try and find out. That's the mechanism they have to make things happen. The people that require, but instead and you can have people committed, but at the same time, it makes sense that you can still just have a smoke screen, really, just a program that's just meant to sort of distract for a while, but doesn't really have an intention of getting to the bottom of anything, and in fact is now seems to be with intention trying to undermine any of the really amazing revelations of the past couple years. And I'm curious if you think they have been successful in keeping whistleblowers at bay, because there's this sort of, they're just trying to create as much static and waves as possible, I think, to just sort of muddy the playing field.
I agree. So in my opinion, I spoke earlier about speaking to some of the people that had testified to Arrow, namely the former nuclear launch control officers. And I debriefed one of the guys and provided kind of an executive summary to a congressional office, a senator's office. And it was, they were so frustrated by how it went. A good example of which. So one of the whistleblowers told me that they received an email from Arrow that was to like the wrong person. These emails were geared to people that had special access program access. So it was like stuff like that. And at one point, this former Air Force officer got into a flat out argument with Kirkpatrick. And Kirkpatrick said, "Oh, we're going to rely on the scientific method for this." And this Air Force officer said, you know what, there's no way this thing doesn't behave like physics that we know. And Kirkpatrick just went on a rant. And so in general, everyone had a really bad experience with Arrow. Now, what really set that off was when Kirkpatrick went and testified in front, I forget the committee, but it was a committee that Senator Kirsten Gillibrand was held, where he said there is no evidence of any extraterrestrial activity or something like that. And it completely lined up with what I had been hearing from these folks that were talking to Arrow. For instance, when these folks would testify to Arrow, there was no one was taking, there was no recording, there was no court recorder. They said they were taking notes. A lot of these folks were promised to be shown the sort of post-interview notes by Arrow. Arrow never provided them. So all of these guys, they were skeptical about Kirkpatrick and Arrow's intentions beforehand, but after their experience, and then after seeing what Kirkpatrick said at the hearing, they were like, man, we don't trust this guy. And I mean, think about it, because a lot of people will have these like crazy notions about, whistleblowers are seeking fame or fortune, and, nothing could be further from the truth. So, these guys, they have thrown away their career. They've thrown away their security clearance. They'll never get another job in working for the government or any contractor that requires a security clearance. And that security clearance post-military, man, that is your golden ticket. That's what gets you hired by all of these contractors. So all of these folks have thrown all of that away. So if you're David Grush and you're hearing all of this from other whistleblowers about what a mess this whole thing is, and they're asking you to go in and basically Kirkpatrick is saying, trust me, bro, come on in and talk. Everything's going to be okay, which is essentially what he was saying. But, oh, by the way, we're not going to give that to you in writing. That sends a message. That sends a message that Arrow, or at least under the leadership of Sean Kirkpatrick, was being completely disingenuous. I think that if I were Dave, I probably would have thought, you know what, even if I do go in and testify, the chances are, knowing how Kirkpatrick is, he's going to twist it around and do everything to try and disparage me. But, so it was, I think, a message to all whistleblowers, A, not to trust Arrow, B, certainly not to trust Sean Kirkpatrick. And I do think it had a chilling effect. I think probably at the very beginning when all of this was happening, everyone's like, okay, finally, we can go in and we can talk about this. But no one trusted Arrow's intentions, which is why, and even this was even going on before, before Dave even came out. I was aware of whistleblowers that did not trust Arrow, did not trust Kirkpatrick, and they were going directly to the Inspector General. And I had warned one particular senator's office early in May, look, a lot of these guys, they are going, and women as well, are going and filing PPD-19's Presidential Protective, basically the Whistleblower Act, PPD-19. They were filing all of these with the Inspector General because they did not trust Arrow. And this was before David came on the scene. This was before, obviously before the hearing. So even way back then, whistleblowers in general were very, very leery about what Arrow was really, really up to.
What did so you are uniquely positioned as in some ways a bridge, your political work, your work with campaigns, now sort of incorporating that into your UAP work, which I find fascinating. And is it your understanding that those in Congress, certain staffers, do they recognize this problem? Do they recognize that Arrow is a little bit of in terms of how you and those who I don't, I don't want to assume or put names of who you're working with or whatever you want to share, but in terms of like what next steps would be or how to counteract that, I mean, it does feel like it's this sort of push pull inside government to keep attention on it and to find, I guess, what's the next avenue for some of these people, or are we stuck with Arrow and just hoping that it improves?
I think we're stuck with Arrow, and we need to hope that it improves. Remember when right before Arrow happened, there was AOI MSG, which, I mean, God knows what the hell that acronym was for. I was like a word salad.
But clearly spells AIMSOG.
AIMSOG, yeah, which
there's
sounds like
there's no relationship
but
to the
delivered
word.
it beautifully.
Yeah, I think it sounds like some kind of foot fungus that you would need to get some kind of prescription for. But AIMSOG was created by Undersecretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks when they understood that Senator Gillibrand was trying to stand up a committee. So the Deputy Secretary, Undersecretary of Defense is like, oh, wait, we got it. And they hurriedly put together AIMSOG, which, of course, which was their way of trying to, in a way, shut down Congress and take control of it. So it was under the DOD umbrella. So they come up with this whole AIMSOG thing, change it to Arrow, and that was just kind of how the whole thing sort of shook out. Now, I don't know exactly how Kirkpatrick was chosen for the job. I suspect it was probably from Ronald Moultrie, who ran OUSD INS, who also, by the way, was on the advisory board for Battelle Memorial Institute, which has a long history in the crash retrieval world of UAP, who, by the way, was the person that testified at that very first House hearing that I think it was like 2 years ago, who, oh, by the way, refused to get briefed on UAP until after he testified in front of Congress. So he had plausible deniability. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, so back to Arrow. So firstly, and I say this with any of these organizations that have been up to some really shady stuff, such as the CIA, there are good people in the CIA, there are good people in Arrow, there are good people in all of these organizations, but none of these organizations are monolithic. And when you have a bad apple, like I think you did with Sean Kirkpatrick, you are going to end up with that particular result. Now, Tim Phillips, who is heading up Arrow right now, I think we need to see what the second historical report is, what that is like. If that is anywhere in approved, I mean, I don't have kids, but if I had a kid and I had an 8th grader, they could have written a better report than Sean Kirkpatrick did with his historical review. So let's hope that it is an improvement. There are some things that Congress they do need to pursue if they want to encourage whistleblowers. They need to strengthen. They need to approve more legislation that enhances whistleblower protections. So an example of which, how the legislation currently is, if a whistleblower comes forward and says a bunch of stuff, there's a long period of time where they have no mechanisms to deal with, they have no immediate legal mechanisms to deal with retaliation from an employer or loss of clearance. All of the things that are in the current statutes, those happen a little bit further down the line. So, if your case is going to be like a year before it goes to the IG, that particular person may have to deal with current legal consequences of being fired from the job or whatever. So Congress needs to put in place better legislation that will protect the whistleblowers all the way through the whistleblower process. So I think if they do that, and if they continue to put pressure on Arrow to deliver good intelligence product, good reports that are not painted with this kind of broad debunking brush that Sean Kirkpatrick did. I'm trying to be optimistic, but I'm worried that Kirkpatrick did a really good job of poisoning the well, and it's kind of hard to unring that bell.
Yeah, and I mean, there's an argument that was a mission successful, in that was really what his job was, not to investigate UAP. Because before AIMSOG, we did briefly have something called the UAP task force.
Right. And the UAP task force, they did stellar work. I know of one individual on there who's not public. They did stellar work. And like, if you go and you compare the report from the UAPTF versus the first ARROW report, it's like a kindergartner wrote the thing.
It was run by Jay Stratton, if I'm not
correct.
If I'm correct, who also was involved with OSAP.
Right.
Right. And, had been involved with, the subject for years. Right. And of course, David Gresh was an investigator for the UAP task force.
Right.
So do you think there's any way we get back to something like that?
Here's part of the problem. The way that ARROW is set up, it does not have what is called 1811 authority. 1811 authority is what is also called special agent authority. It's what allows a FBI agent to carry a badge, carry a gun, to serve search warrants. They did not, even though ARROW had a FBI liaison, people from the AFOSI. None of those agents had 1811 authority. So ARROW does not have investigative authority to go and demand access. They can ask for it. They can go to the CIA or the DOE, and Sean can go when Sean was there, he could go and say, hey, do you guys have any special access programs related to UAP? And the CIA says no. And then Sean goes, okay. And that's it. He did not have the power to depose people. He did not have the power to subpoena people. He did not have the power to force any of this stuff. So he overstates ARROW's authority. So if ARROW does not have 1811 authority, they really can't do their job. So for instance, under in the intelligence world, you have what they're called controlled access programs. The DOD does not have the authority to go and demand access to that cap. It is not set up that way. So Kirkpatrick is being disingenuous when he is telling Congress and the public that he had all of the power to do what he needed to do. He did not.
And there's a most recent bit of, seems like, disinformation, which is the revelation of something called Kona Blue. Now,
right.
Now I'm trying to get clear. Was that Kirkpatrick again making this claim, or was it ARROW proper?
So I think it was ARROW proper, but I would venture to guess that this had been cooked up for a while. And Kona Blue would be an example of what makes me not optimistic about ARROW. Okay, so basically, Kona Blue, I would say, was sort of like a special access program placeholder for facilitating transfer of materials of unknown origin. It was the thing, from how I understand it, it was like never stood up. It never had a building. It never had people. It was a placeholder that
it was suggested by Harry Reid, right? Memo years ago, like we might call something this.
Exactly.
When they were trying to get special access protection for basically what was the OSAP program going forward.
Right. So ARROW releases this thing, and I think it was Kirkpatrick that stated that the whistleblowers that had come into ARROW were telling them that the crash retrieval program that they were whistleblowing on was Kona Blue. Well, that was a lie. That is not the program any of these folks were referring to. So the way that I look at the Kona Blue release by ARROW is, is an attempt to kind of say, you know what, all these whistleblowers that were coming into Arrow, that were claiming the existence of some crash retrieval program, they were referring to Kona Blue, and here we declassified this document on Kona Blue. As you can see, it never existed. Blah 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 blah. So to me, that looks like yet another kind of notch on the bedpost of Kirkpatrick of trying to get all of this to make all of this go away.
Yeah.
And the thing you have to consider as well, all of the entire UAP portfolio, UFO, whatever you want to call it, all of that has sit under the CIA almost since its existence. The CIA is the portfolio holder of this entire thing. And if you go back and you look at how long they have lied to Congress, lied to the American public about this. If Sean Kirkpatrick goes in there and knocks on the CIA's door, and they know he has no 1811 authority, do you think that they are going to just go, oh yeah, this is this program we've been hiding for quite some time. Here you go.
Mm-hmm.
This is all it is. It's just not a realistic expectation.
It's literally their job to lie and deceive of what their actual true intentions. It's their mission statement. The CIA. I mean, now.
So the last thing that I'll say about Kirkpatrick, because I know I've been going on for quite a while about him, is that this guy with the historical report, he essentially is trading one conspiracy theory for another. So we'll say the conspiracy theory of crash retrievals. So now he comes out with this conspiracy theory that is where he's saying that Congress has been hoodwinked by a bunch of super high-ranking intelligence officials that have had TSSCI clearance that are this kind of like UFO religion, and that they've fooled congressional staffers, they've fooled senators, they've fooled people on the Senate Armed Services Committee. So it's just bananas. It truly is.
Yeah, Chuck Schumer has been hoodwinked.
Yes.
And Mike Rounds together, they've both been hoodwinked.
And the thing to keep in mind, so you'll have debunkers like Mick West that'll say, oh, these staffers, they're young and out of college and whatnot. The thing to understand is that the staffers, depending on the committee assignment, when they're working for a senator, they have the same security clearances. So these staffers have to be able to sit in a skiff and listen to David Grush talk, and then go back to Senator Gillibrand and say, hey, he said this in a classified setting. We need to work on this.
And the staffers have usually pretty good credentials.
Oh yeah.
They aren't just like they aren't like Senate interns.
No,
they aren't people getting school credit.
Yeah,
there's this. Being a congressional staffer or a Senate staffer, they're usually like lawyers and they people who have degrees.
They do. Yeah, the ones that I've dealt with, and there've been quite a few. They are very sharp individuals. They know what they're talking about. They are no nonsense. They are not. They are not anyone that you could go and just tell them some fantasy and they'll believe it.
Yeah, well, their job is to make sure that the people they work for are informed and not embarrassed.
Absolutely, because that is the number one job of a staffer, is not to make the principal look bad ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, listen. I'm grateful you're in there swinging, throwing punches for all of us. I think Kirkpatrick's going to do his thing. It's the government's going to do its thing. The CIA is going to do its thing. I am curious just about your personal experience with delving into this topic. And we were joking earlier about, your hot tub, and you saw something.
Right.
But in seriousness, have was it an experience that brought you to this? Was you were in this and then had an experience? What was the order of events there? And was there ever a moment after you began to hear some of these stories where you were like, what the fuck have I gotten myself into now? Like how deep does this rabbit hole go?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's an interesting question. So Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That came out when I was like 9, so that sort of started my interest in the whole thing. But I think like just prior to that, I found some books on UFOs in elementary school and started reading them. Was interested in them, in the topic for a while, and then completely forgot about it. Then, of course, the New York Times 2017 article comes out, and I was like, wow, I had no idea, and that got me interested in it again. I had so for the 20. So the last election cycle, I had, I'd been producing political ads supporting President Biden. And at the time, I was trying to get my Twitter account verified. And one of the ways that you could do that was by writing op-eds. And I had written some op-eds about U.S. and Russian nuclear policy that got published. And the UAP thing came to mind. And I thought, you know what? I want to write something about that. And through some connections, I was introduced to a particular senator's chief of staff. And next thing I knew, I was on a just say like a Zoom call with a few of these staff members that dealt with national security issues for this particular senator. And I said, hey, I want to write this article. And I thought at the time that meeting was more about like, where are you going to pitch the article or whatnot. But instead, this one staffer said, okay, what do you want to know about UFOs? And I was so like completely dumbfounded. I didn't have like a list of questions. So I just blurted out, are UFOs real? And this Senate staffer, it was a 30-minute long conversation, 30-ish minutes. And where they said, yes, it's real. It's not from here. Don't know where it's from. This isn't China or Russia. And then the biggest thing that, actually, the other thing they said that surprised me was these things were being observed going in and out of the atmosphere on our intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance satellites, space-based platforms. Wow. They were very careful in how they worded that. And then the last thing that really stuck out of my mind is one of the guys on the call said, he said it was something along the lines of, our entire life, we may never understand where this is from. And that really set me on my path. Now, prior to that, I hadn't had any kind of experiences or anything of that sort. So it was either, I think, like the day after, I had also begun a series of interviews with Robert Hastings, who wrote UFOs and Nukes. And with my interest in U.S. and Russian nuclear policy, which I'd studied since the 90s, he and I hit it off really well. And like the day after that, so after the senator's call and my call with Robert Hastings, all of a sudden we started having weird shit happen in the house, like paranormal stuff. And it started off with this dog gate that got pushed over. We thought somebody was breaking into the house, and we look on our security camera and we can see it looked like somebody took the gate and just pushed it over from the top, boom, and started having like banging on the walls. And I mean, just really weird stuff. And some of it we're like, oh, it's just the house settling, live in LA. And then it was about 5 days later when we're out in the hot tub, and all of a sudden my wife goes, what the hell is that? And I turn around, and at first I thought it was a helicopter landing light, and it was coming right towards the house. And being somebody that works in film and television, immediately, like a second later, I realized that the quality of the light was unlike anything I had ever seen. It was like looking at a welding arc, except it didn't hurt your eyes. And this thing is coming right at us, and it's about the size of like a Mini Cooper, about, 200-300 feet off of the ground.
What's your neighborhood like, and what's the view like? I mean, in terms of how populated, because you're in LA. We're both in LA.
We're both in LA. So I'm up in the hills, fairly high up. So I see Burbank air traffic go over the house all the time. Okay. See satellites, but it's very quiet. And I live right next door, or my property butts up to a country club. So this orb of light appeared above the country club. So it's coming towards us, and then all of a sudden, poof! It just fades out, and we're both sitting there looking at it, shocked. And then about a second later, it reappears, and this time it's closer. And the only way I can describe it, it was goldish in color, a little bit warmer than an incandescent bulb. and it faded in and out like I'm sorry, not a landing light, like a firefly. So it would fade out, there would be nothing there, there was no sound, then it would fade back up. So it was doing this fade in, fade out thing. It gets right up to the house, and then it starts going up and up and up. And each time it reappears, it's at a slightly different place.
So at
And
this point, this is going on what? How long now? And are you
about
able to have
3 minutes.
conversations about it while it's happening? And
We are
what are you
both like
saying?
we're both like in complete shock. And I don't think I had my cell phone there. I didn't think to grab it. We're both like staring at this thing, and it goes up, and it gets to about the size of like what a star would look like. And it was next to three other stars, and then all three move off in unison. And and that was that was the first time. It's happened a total of 10 times since then. Uh, 10
10
times.
times.
So the last time that it showed up was October 30th of last year. So myself, my wife, and a friend, we were going to go out to dinner, and I go inside to look for my wallet. I come outside, and my friend is all agitated, and my wife says, "Oh, the thing showed up again." This time it was low to the house, but this time it was surrounded like by a small cumulus cloud, and the cloud tracked with the orb as it moved away and was fading in and out. Like it was previous times, and it was also illuminating the cloud from the inside. But yeah, I mean, it has been weird. You know, the paranormal stuff that lasted for probably 4 to 6 months. I would say was like banging on the walls, voices. The dog would growl at things in the middle of the night. I mean, it was bizarre.
Were
And
you making the association? I mean, were you saying like, what have I taken on here? Or
Well, it was funny. So when this happened, and when it started happening repeatedly. So I think like after the second or third time, and it was really the paranormal stuff in the house that was kind of the most worrisome, I guess, in a way. My wife finally said, hey, maybe if you stop looking into this stuff, it'll just go away. So I gave Dr. Gary Nolan a call, and he and I are friends, and I told him what was going on. And I said, hey, if I give this whole topic up, will all of this stop? And he said, no, once you've opened the door, it'll continue to come back. Maybe it'll, won't happen for a while. But the more people that I talk to about it, it's once it's happened once, it'll probably happen again. Now, like I said, nothing has happened since October. And quite frankly, if nothing happens again, I'm fine with it too. It's disconcerting. I remember hearing a podcast host say that, you don't want this. And I never kind of understood it, but I think it's one thing to like think all of it's real, but when you see it yourself and it's multiple times and you have your wife is there to witness it as well. Yeah, it's some really weird stuff. And I have no idea where it's from.
But it does feel like it's like a deliberate interaction when it happens 10 times.
Absolutely. I mean, so Dave, you've experienced it. And when I was at the Soul Conference, I was talking to Christopher Mellon, and one of the things at the Soul Conference that really kind of made me stop and think is like, this is a really serious deal. It's like how this is handled. And when I spoke to Robert Hastings about what had happened following after the first time the orb showed up, I called him, told him, and he said it's probably hitchhiker effect. And as I mentioned, I'd never had anything happen. The slightly weird, I mean, it's a weird girlfriends, but nothing weird, ever anything close to that. And the only reason that I could think of that it happened was that I was mentally engaging with it, or it was this hitchhiker effect, you hear about. I mean, who knows? I have no idea why the thing showed up. I'll probably never know, but
but it's certainly not an uncommon in the UFO world that people have this, but that once they engage in the subject, things start happening.
Yeah. No, and and your story with Jeremy, Dave. I mean, that's a prime example, because you had never had anything prior to that, right?
No, nothing. No.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where where I asked for it to happen and it did. Like I didn't think it would.
Isn't that weird?
But yeah, where I just said this would be a good night to see something and it showed up.
We definitely live in a weird universe. That is for sure. That's yeah.
There was a moment in Saul. It's funny because had never met Chris Mellon either, and I had I just was asking him what he thought we should cover, and when we're doing this podcast, and he was saying like, should we disclose? I haven't heard that. That's an interesting question of is does the consciousness of it encourage it, since there was so much discussion of consciousness as as much an element of these sightings and these phenomenon and these objects in the sky. There seemed to be this constant drumbeat that consciousness was as important to the conversation as material objects or whatever aluminum foil they're made out of or whatever.
Right.
It's and that I know that's fascinating. And I'm sorry. And so he was like, well, maybe was that a concern of his?
Well, when I had spoken to him about what had happened at the house in terms of the paranormal stuff, Chris brought up that a lot of the same things that I had experienced were same things that were reported at Skinwalker Ranch. And I've never been to Skinwalker Ranch, but
Right.
a lot of kind of a lot of the same things: the banging, the voices, and just really bizarre stuff. And before I even got into this subject, I had no idea that paranormal stuff often co-located with UAPs. But yeah, there's so a few times that it happened when I was out in the hot tub, strangely enough, there was a friend of mine in the intelligence community. When the thing would show up, I'd immediately get on Signal and call this friend and would say, hey, the thing's back out here again. And this individual said, try to mentally engage with it. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, talk to it in your head. And I tried that. I never got anything. You've heard of people say, well, I asked it in my mind to turn left and it turned left. I tried different things to see if I was somehow, my conscious was connected with it, but nothing that I tried resulted in any sort of different behavior. It always tended to do. It showed up as either a low orb, orbolite, and then about the other half of the time, and that was about only a couple hundred feet off the ground. And then the other sort of modality it would appear as is a super bright flash bulb going off in the sky, maybe like 10,000 feet, and then it would move, boop, flash on and off, move again, poof, flash on and off. But I never felt any kind of connection or felt like it was talking to me or anything like that. Nothing of that.
You must have felt like you were on the right track, though. I mean, it's 10 sightings and the and poltergeist on top of it is it is certainly a communication of a sort that. You were like,
so.
This is probably a better podcast choice than, I don't know, like celebrities or like, you're like, I've got the right, I'm doing the right thing here.
There are times that, I have a pretty open mind. It's like, nothing would surprise me. Does it mean I necessarily believe that it's probably true? Maybe not, but hey, I've seen weird shit. So it's like literally nothing would surprise me at all. And
It takes away the notion that it's that the subject is a matter of conjecture when
right.
you've had when you have a personal experience with it.
Well,
you're no longer wondering, is it real? You're going, oh, okay, now I've seen it. I know it's real, but what is it?
Well, and the thing is, I think all of us, at some point, sometimes we reach a point where we start to self-doubt or maybe this is all a bunch of BS. Maybe Mick West was right and it's some seagulls in the air. You kind of have these moments of this all is just too crazy for it to be real. But then when I stop and I stop myself and go, wait, you've seen this 10 times and other people have been there with you when it's happened. So that it's real. And so it's once you've seen it, you just know. And I don't know where it's from. I don't know why it showed up. I don't know if it's from another dimension or from another planet. I don't know if it's AI controlled or some gray and some ship controlling it? I literally have no idea. But I do know that I've seen it, and and I think as well, one of the reasons that I decided to start messaging on this is I being a Democratic activist, and having worked in that realm, that is what opened up a lot of doors for me in Washington. I also was aware that by and large, the UFO topic doesn't test well with Republicans, doesn't test well with most Democrats versus Republicans. Democrats are very skeptical of the subject, and I have this huge, I've got a very large Twitter following, and I knew, especially after seeing all this myself, that this is a really serious topic that our nation needs to deal with. And that was a lot of the reason too why I chose to get in it, is get into the game, as I have this, primarily Democratic, a group of Democratic activists that are the majority of my Twitter audience, and they are not aware of any of this stuff going on, or if they do, at a very cursory level. And so I looked at that as an opportunity to message to a group that is typically very skeptical of this whole thing.
And have you felt any shift in
Yeah, I was going to ask,
your
what's the
interactions?
engagement? Yeah.
I would. That's a good question.
I mean, we do have. There's one. I forget the name of the representative. Moskowitz. That's who it is. Hey, I remember the name.
Right.
Jason Moskowitz is kind of the in the UAP caucus.
Right.
He seems like he's the lone Democrat in there.
Yes. So you do have Senator Gillibrand. So Senator Gillibrand and Marco Rubio were the really kind of the key players, and we would not be where we are right now if it had not been for the good work both of them have done. I mean, here's a good one person told me this once. The two things that members of Congress are scared of, number one, are their electorate back at home, and number two is the military-industrial complex. Those are the two things they are most afraid of. And look, I co-wrote an article in November of last year for the Daily Mail with Chris Sharp and Josh Boswell, where we laid out in great detail how the CIA had been running this entire crash retrieval program, running it out of this department in the Directorate of Science and Technology called the Office of Global Access. And we worked on that thing for well over a month and talked to very high-level people that had security clearances and some that had dealt with this particular topic. And, and the big takeaway from what we wrote was that the CIA had been running this whole thing all along, that they continue to recover craft, and half of what they recover, the recovery operations, are tasked to private aerospace to go and recover. So let's say you are not Rockwell Collins. Let's say like you're Boeing or
Blackwater,
and guess who you have as a security contractor that does all of your paramilitary stuff? People like Blackwater. So when the CIA, Office of Global Access, when they are notified that one of these things are go down, the recovery operation is either spun off to JSOC, or what's called Joint Special Operations Command, and they send a team of Navy SEALs and people from the Department of Energy to pick it up. And then half the time they send it to the private aerospace company, who sends their security contractor to recover it. But the point of it was, a big takeaway is that the CIA is doing this, and they have been hiding it from Congress. They hide it because they don't want congressional oversight. So at the end of the day, and this is the main thing that myself and Dave Grush and Lou Elizondo and other people tell people on Capitol Hill, is that what this boils down to is a constitutional crisis. When you have a military-industrial complex and an intelligence community that is literally operating as if they are running a military junta, that in and of itself is a direct threat to our democracy. When you are completely bypassing Congress and purposefully hiding things from them, and you're also hiding things from certain presidents, perhaps the current one, how can you expect Congress or the president to conduct foreign policy, or Congress to legislate, if the intelligence community is lying to them and not telling them what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
It would be like not telling the president that Russia exists and there are a bunch of nukes that are targeted here. He can't do his job. He or she cannot do their jobs, if they are not told what is truly going on. And
Yeah.
this is going on, and they are hiding it.
And the CIA are expressly prohibited from operating on U.S. soil.
That is correct.
And so this would be a violation of that directive as well.
It would be so I'm obviously not an attorney, so I know some of the ins and outs of it. Part of how this has been hidden is, so you have everybody has heard the term black program, or deep black program, programs that the public never sees. The names for those are special access programs that are intelligence community. They're called CAPS, controlled access programs. So let's say you're the Air Force and you come up with the special access program that's going to go and knock a Tic Tac out of the air, and you're going to recover it, or Eglin Air Force Base or whatever. So you come up with this special access program. You go to the Deputy Secretary of Defense, who in this case is Kathleen Hicks. You tell Kathy Hicks, I've got this SAP. It's going to pick up UFOs. It's going to cost $500 million a year. The SAP is going to run for 5 years, blah, blah, blah. Kathy Hicks can then decide that the SAP is either waived or acknowledged. So then all she has to tell the Gang of Eight is, oh, the Air Force is standing up the special access program. It's a support program. It's going to cost $500 million a year, and it's going to run for 5 years. That's all she has to tell them. And so they are left in the dark. There are other mechanisms to hide it from Congress as well. But one of the reasons for sticking this in private aerospace, of course, is you can't FOIA private aerospace. So if you want to hide stuff from Congress, and some of the people that have defended the reasoning for that by saying, you tell Congress, you tell the world, I can certainly understand that. But it's, the reason that the whole security infrastructure was laid out the way it was under the Atomic Energy Act was that they did not want component level information regarding our nuclear technology getting out. They didn't want it getting out that you need this widget and this widget from Home Depot and you've got a bomb. They didn't want that out in the public domain, and they did not want Congress to know about it. But you can tell people, you can tell the public about the existence of nuclear weapons without telling them the necessary information to build it. This is really no different. The intelligence community, they can tell people about the reality of this thing without giving away things that are going to endanger our national security. And none of us that are advocating for any of this on the Hill are advocating for any disclosure of quantities of things that we have or what we have, or anything that would jeopardize national security. None of us would do anything. All of us love our country. None of us would do anything that would possibly jeopardize that. I don't speak for Dave or Lou, but I would venture to guess that they would say the exact same things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's when you hear people criticizing, saying, "Look, if they really believe in all this, they should just make it all public and go to jail. They should stand up for what they believe in, go to jail for America." And first off, that's a big ask from Twitter. And also, I know that, like Lou said, like part of his reason for honoring his NDA is that he sees it as part of his patriotic duty to honor that NDA, and he wouldn't want to do anything to violate his oath to America.
Absolutely. What I would say would be true amongst everyone is that we all see what is a kind of yeah, it's a right that has to be wrong. It's a reconciliation that needs to happen, because what I would say Lou and Dave and others, including myself, are seeing is something that flies in the face of the Constitution of the United States. And when you're purposefully lying to Congress and you're lying to the American people, and you're continuing to do so, and I think that's my message, because I know that people in DC watch all of these shows. My message to them, and there are good people and there are people that realize, people that work in CIA, DOD, different areas of the government, that they realize that this can't continue going on the way it's been going on. It's as Lou once said, it's like vegetables rotting in the refrigerator. It's not going to get any better. But my message to the lawmakers, and particularly the men and women in the CIA, is that the sooner that they come clean, the better the reconciliation process will be with the American public. I think that they will find, if the CIA and also in particular the Air Force comes forward and says, look, this is what happened. This is why we covered it up. We felt at the time it was the best thing for national security. We were fighting the Cold War, and it was just something that we kept putting it off, and it wasn't the original lie. It was that was so bad. It was the multiple lies that came subsequently to cover it up. If they just come clean with the American people and say, look, we're human. We effed up. A bunch of us did. We look back now and realize it was a mistake, but this is what happened. This is where we're at. We can't tell you everything we know. There's some things that we don't know about this, but it's better that we just lay it out on the table. The path to reconciliation will be 100% easier for the Air Force, for the CIA, for the Pentagon, if they come clean, versus if something catastrophic happens, like Russia chooses to disclose first, China chooses to disclose first. The abject damage to U.S. national standing in the world by one of our foreign adversaries admitting to this first will be absolutely catastrophic to the reputation of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have to consider as well, what if of whatever this is decides to mass disclose itself? You're going to have a absolute train wreck in Washington, D.C., as the American public asks, how long have you known about this? Why did you lie to us about it? Who got hurt in the process? And and oh, by the way, we could have protected our families, and you guys chose not to tell us about it. The repercussions of doing the right thing by coming clean and laying as much as you can out on the table without harming national security, versus continuing to lie and bury their head in the sand. They are two totally different worlds. So my message to them: do the right thing, do it now. Now is the time.
And that seems like that's
Amen,
the
brother.
message. That's the message that the Rubio Gillibrand legislation seemed like it was sending out as well. It seemed like they were building into that legislation that olive branch.
I think so. And I think that was one of the main reasons that the failure of the UAPDA, Disclosure Act, was so disappointing, was that this was a good mechanism to get to that point. For instance, you had a UAP advisory board that was comprised, that would have been comprised of members appointed by the president, where they were able to look at all of the classified product and recommend to the president whether something was released. The purpose of that, by the way, was to make sure that certain special access programs that absolutely cannot ever, ever, ever see the light of day do not inadvertently that they are not inadvertently that they were not inadvertently disclosed during that process. People that I spoke to on the Hill, that was a very big concern. Was that they were hearing incorrectly that this program this Disclosure Act could have led to the inadvertent disclosure of saps and caps that absolutely could not ever be revealed, that were not related to UAP. But the fact of the matter was there was a mechanism in place that would have ensured that none of that would have happened. And at the end of the day, the president still kept veto power. So the members could have said, hey, we think this needs to come out. And if the president made the determination that it was damaging to national security, he or she could have declined it. The whole issue with that act was that there was enforcement language in there that a Congressman Mike Turner and others did not like. It was the same thing with Iran-Contra. So Congress found out about Iran-Contra. They passed legislation to try and make sure Iran-Contra didn't happen again. Well, guess what? There was no enforcement language in the bill, and the CIA just kept doing it. Same thing, 1973, the Robertson panel, where part of what was discussed among many of the really bad things the CIA was doing was the fact that the CIA had been paying off, that had on their payroll 400 or so American journalists that were pushing CIA propaganda. The journalist, not Bob Woodward, is blanking on the other guy. So he was one that discovered that. So there's this long history of the CIA lying to Congress and lying to the American people. If they would just do the right thing, and I can't even imagine the amount of stress they must be under, Pentagon and the IC, having to continue to try and cover this thing up. They just come clean. I think that America will be very understanding.
Yeah, and I think
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say, for people that are skeptical that any of these things can be kept quiet for any length of time, I would point out that I think it was only 2000 or maybe a little bit later that it became public that the U.S. did not win the Cuban Missile Crisis negotiations.
Right.
That the narrative that we've all lived with is that Cuba, that the Soviets put these missiles as an aggressive act,
right?
But we stood them down and they backed off. And when the reality is, the U.S. put missiles in Turkey aimed at the Soviet Union. So then the Soviets put missiles into Cuba, and then the negotiations started, and the U.S. agreed to take the missiles out of Turkey, and that's how that was settled. And still, even though that is now public knowledge, I would guess 98% of the population has no idea that that's what really happened.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of it's not the exception, it's the rule.
Well,
yeah,
unfortunately. You recently had a guest on talking about Havana syndrome and the CIA. Can you give us a little sense of that more recent kind of chicanery, or what the CIA was or wasn't telling us about Havana syndrome?
Sure. So kind of my path to that. So one of my good friends, she was the former Homeland Security advisor to Mike Pence in the Trump administration. Her name is Olivia Troy. So she's a national security individual. She was featured on 60 Minutes. It was either 2 or 3 years ago when they did the story about Havana syndrome. So Olivia was hit with it when she was walking out of the Eisenhower building towards the West Wing. And there's a set of stairs that go down into this kind of rectangular parking lot that sits between the White House and the Eisenhower building. And she was hit as she exited and was walking to her car.
Now, you mean hit by an energy weapon I guess what you're saying is like, because what they concluded Havana syndrome was.
Right. And there were multiple other people in the Trump administration that were targeted and were hit with this. John Bolton spoke about this. There was one high-ranking national security official that I think everyone would know, that was in Walter Reed Hospital for an entire month, who had been so damaged by Havana. So anyway, so Mark Zaid is the attorney that is who testified earlier today. He was at the subcommittee on counterterrorism in the House. This was at 1:00 Eastern time today. And so Mark Zaid has represented multiple, dozens upon dozens of clients from the national security establishment, people, FBI agents, Secret Service, CIA. That is kind of his specialty, are dealing with people that work in the national security end of the country. And so he is representing multiple victims of Havana syndrome. And these were not things that specifically that only happened to the Trump administration. They've happened throughout many administrations, both Democratic and Republican. It is a bipartisan issue, and he, as he's explaining this, one of the things that he was talking about is that he holds a security clearance, so he is able to hear certain classified things from clients, of course, in a SCIF, in a classified setting, but he said that he has concrete evidence, classified evidence, that he will share with Congress in a classified setting that absolutely proves that the CIA is lying about Havana syndrome, which they now call anomalous health incidents.
So what would they be keeping the existence of Havana syndrome from the public? Like, because they were, it seemed like for years they were playing a shell game, right? They were doing a little bit of like, it's a little this, it's a little that, it's a little, why would they do this?
I would venture to guess for a couple of reasons. I would venture to guess our people are doing the same thing to them with a similar type weapon. That would be number one. Number two, as well, is it. And this is where a lot of this kind of had a lot of commonality on the UAP subject. It is Havana, much like the UAP subject, is a topic that they don't want to go down the decision tree. They don't want to have to answer some very hard questions. So in the case of Havana syndrome, they don't want to have to ask themselves the question, is this an act of war? Mm-hmm. Is the fact that that evidence appears to point that Russia is targeting the top 5% of our national leadership.
Yeah, these are the all-stars of our intelligence and diplomatic corps, right? I mean,
these are the all-stars. These are not the low-level folks. So, that is a hard question to ask. So if the public, if the CIA, if the intelligence community has a press conference tomorrow and says, hey, everyone in the United States, Russia has been physically attacking all of our national security folks with some kind of microwave weapon. A lot of them suffered today. They can't even work any longer. The American public is going to want blood.
They're going to want blood, and they're going to wonder if we doing it as well.
They're going to wonder if we're doing it, and I have no idea if we are or not. But I think
I'm sure we are.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. But I mean, I think that the larger thing is, to me, it is. I can't think of a greater act of war than targeting the people that are part of the national defense decision-making infrastructure, the human command and control. That is, to me, a blatant act of war.
It's a fine line too, right? They're not assassinating people, but they're crippling them. I mean, it's a real, like, I mean, what it's
it's asymmetric warfare, which we have seen the Russians are very good at. They have assassinated people with Novichok and other chemicals. They are very good intelligence operators. They're very very talented. They know what they are doing, and we have seen that Vladimir Putin likes to operate in a very asymmetric way in terms of warfare. So it is no surprise that this has been going on. And the thing that you have to remember, you hear the debunkers say, "Oh, this is some magic ray gun. There's no way it exists." But the fact of the matter is that the Soviets have been at this since the late '60s. There was since I believe the late '60s into early '70s, the ambassador to the American ambassador to Russia received from his Russian counterpart a plaque, an emblem of the United States as a gift. And the ambassador hung this thing above his desk in his office in Moscow. Of course, before he did it, he gave it to the State Department technical surveillance team. They analyzed it. They didn't see anything coming out of it. No radio waves, no RF energy, X-rayed it, nothing. So this thing sat above his desk, and they soon later discovered that Russia had been beaming low-level microwave energy into his office, and they could not figure out why. Well, about 7 years later, they finally figured out that the Russians had buried some kind of passive device in this emblem that was a gift, that when it was energized with microwave radiation, it sent audio back to the Russians. So this is something the Russians have been doing for a very long time. So it's no surprise that they are doing this with Havana. But again, it's the overarching theme. It's a topic the CIA doesn't want to think about. They bury their head. They don't want to let Congress know about it. They lie to Congress about it. They lie to the American people about it because they don't want people asking questions. They don't want to be held accountable for it. So there are a lot of commonalities between Havana syndrome and how the CIA has lied about that, and the UAP issue, which they own the portfolio of, and why they continue to lie about that as well. They both are very hand in hand. And as a matter of fact, Mark Zaid said today when he testified under oath to Congress that he will provide this classified evidence that the CIA is lying to Congress in a skiff as soon as they can get him in there.
Good. He should, and that's great. And you this has been awesome, and you are so informed. If you could choose some highlight episodes, if people want to check out the Good Trouble Show with Matt Ford, what episodes really stick with you? What are some stories that have stayed with you? What would be a great kind of top 3 lineup for you, or shows you're proudest of?
Wow. I would say definitely Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. We were very fortunate to have her on the show. I would also encourage everyone to check out the last interview with attorney Mark Zaid, who it's not UAP related, but that is great as well. And another one that's really interesting, we interviewed Kevin Knuth, who is a physicist and was also at Seoul, talking about just kind of the observed physical properties of UAP and like how much energy they would have to do to perform things of that nature. Yeah, I tell people, even like in my day job, I remember like one show ago, and that's about it. I run into people all the time. It's like, what was that show we worked on 2 years ago? It's like, man, I have no idea.
You've been doing it longer than us, and it's starting to add up for us too, where it's, and you're going like, oh, wow. And you look back and you're like, we've had a lot of conversation. Then there's some that do kind of like, they're just sticky in your brain, whether it's, I don't know, something freaked you out or just compelling, but there are a lot of great ones to choose from your podcast. And
you're doing amazing stuff over there.
Yeah, and and it's branched into this whole other realm where you're really, you are really a part of the conversation in a great way, and fighting the good fight in there, and we appreciate it. And have thoroughly enjoyed having you here, and of course
Thank
we'll
you.
do it again. Hopes we want to keep the conversation going, and this is what anything coming up you're excited about or want to talk, for the show, or things that you're looking forward to in terms of this topic in the next 6 months or so.
We have Dr. Avi Loeb that'll be on this week. That'll be live Sunday at 12
great.
noon.
That's awesome.
So he's great. And then there is something rather big that I will be involved with, something in DC that I can't speak about, but a new effort that I will be, I'm lucky to be a part of, and we are currently planning that. But that's about all I can say.
That's cool. Well,
but it's a good, it's a very good thing.
Yeah.
Good,
and I guess
good.
I would ask one last question, which is just what's your level of optimism right now going forward?
My sense is that there is a lot going on at the moment that I think UAP is a bit on the back burner. But what I will say is that there is, how can I put this? There's a good bit of engagement at the congressional level, despite all of the bullshit that Sean Kirkpatrick has put out. Or a lot of members of Congress, not all of Congress, but a great deal of them understand that this is a big issue that must be dealt with. Maybe it isn't completely dealt with this year. I'm more optimistic about something happening in 2025 when the election is over.
Look, it's important to keep it a bipartisan issue, and we can have our political opinions. I still, like, Republicans and Democrats unite. We could disagree on things. It's like everybody stay bipartisan about this thing. It's he has some key allies who have been leading the charge on this issue, and to their credit. And so yes. I think it's important to us all to stay friends on this. But it is the only bipartisan issue.
Yeah, I know. It is the only bipartisan issue, and it's important that it stays that way.
Yeah.
And I've said time and again on my show, I'm a blue-blooded Democrat, and I've told people this on the Hill, Republican people, but I always say, you know what, I will support any person regardless of party that is doing good work on this. So I would in a heartbeat have Tim Burchett on my show. We may not agree on anything politically, but we do agree on that. And I have such a high level of respect for him, for what he has done, and others that are not on the party that I typically vote for. But this thing must remain bipartisan. The minute that it doesn't, it will derail the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Canadian socialist. And and the only politician in Canada who's spoken on this issue at all is a conservative. Larry Maguire. So I'm definitely in Larry Maguire's corner.
You got a lot of work to do, Dave, on your country folk.
Oh, we're way behind. We're so far behind the U.S.
Got a lot.
I don't know about that
in this right now.
But thanks for having me, guys.
Matt, it was
pleasure.
Fantastic, buddy. Thank you so much, and let's do it again soon, okay?
I'd love to.
All right,
great.
So Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Cheers.
So, for our Patreons, Eglin Air Force Base, what's that all about?
Well, it's an Air Force base in Florida. This is the one where Matt Gaetz, Tim Burchett, and Luna, I forget what's her whole name? Representative Luna.
That's a trio of political crazies, but they support the UAP issue, so we're gonna. So
they went down to Florida to talk to a pilot who went out to investigate a UFO. And he said he got up there and his radar was jammed when he got close to this thing, and his cockpit cameras and recording devices all failed as he got close to this thing. So I think he took footage of it with his cell phone because everything else was jammed.
And this is a recent thing?
Yeah, it was recent, and it was a thing that Matt Gaetz had seen a photo of this thing and he talked about it during the congressional hearing